working on environmental risk assessment and management. In addition, we are in a close touch with Igor Linkov since many years, so we know each other very well. And I'm very glad today to introduce you Igor Linkov, who is a research scientist working for the US Army Engineering Research and Development Center in Concord, Massachusetts, near Boston, but he's also adjunct professor at the Carnegie Mellon University, Pittsburgh, and however, he is now visiting professor as well as visiting researcher in Foscari. So right now, Igor is a colleague delivering today a seminar on risk and decision science, covering development and applications. A few information about the background of Igor. After master and bachelor in science as in physics of solid state. In Russia, he moved to the States where he got a PhD in environmental, occupational and radiation health from the University of Pittsburgh in 1995. And then he got a postdoc position at Harvard in 1997 in biostatistics and toxicology. His current research interests cover risk assessment, multi-criteria decision analysis, nanotechnology, public policy, military decision making, as well as strategic planning, data fusion, modeling, and public policy. So it's a great pleasure to leave the audience to Igor. By the way, Igor also is going next to close his teaching in environmental sustainability in Foscari. So here we have also some students from the course attending this seminar. And the course also was organized in a way to gain from practical applications of decision analysis and risk assessment interesting insights into practical decision science. So Igor, the floor is for you.
Thank you very much, Antonio. It's really my pleasure to be here. And there are a couple of chairs here, so I don't think I need standing ovations in this room. So, well, we really indeed live in a very interesting world, world full of risks. This is actually taken from 2013 World Economic Forum reports when they tried to plot 50 different types of risk in economic, environmental area, societal. And you can see there are many high risks, like climate change and environmental, economic destruction, and things like that. Well, should we worry about this? What we should do about all this risk? You know, we have in the media all this, sometimes even mass hysteria about SARS and some other issues. So I like to start with my conclusion because many of you may have to leave earlier. What I really like to tell you about is the need of integration of bottom-up approaches that starts with data collection, goes through modeling and then risk characterization, with top-down approaches. That's actually what I'm specializing in, and not too many people doing that. The idea here is because of huge uncertainty that we live in, you need to start with what you can do and then go to data collection and management. So combination of top-down and bottom-up approaches are really important to address risk and prioritize resources, especially when funding is an issue like now. So integration of risk assessment and decision analysis, where risk is bottom-up approach, decision analysis top-down approach, is really beneficial in the context of these emerging risks. So the way I'm going to do that is actually I will start with global risk ideas and related to past, especially being in Venice. It's very important to know the history. I will talk a little bit about information and decisions, how they are integrated and what should we do about that. I will quickly talk about tools that we practice in my team, the risk assessment, cognitive modeling, and decision analysis. I will briefly highlight application of these tools in 2 case studies, adaptive management in the case of Everglades, ecosystem restoration, and portfolio decision-making on Eglin Air Force Base. I will try to show a transition from risk to resilience. I do believe it's very important, and this is actually the future, with the idea that risk is focused on identifying how to respond to known or predicted threats, while resilience is the ability to prepare ourselves to deal with unknown or unquantifiable threats. And finally, I have 2 students here who will present results of the course, Jenny and Sarah, and I really feel that to teach risk and resilience, you need case-based, project-based approaches, and we try to experiment with that in Kaspersky, thanks to Professor Marcomini and Elena, who allowed me to do that. Okay, so risk-based decisions. It's really getting to be a high political agenda. President Obama issues executive order and a couple of policy directives calling for risk-based decision tools for cybersecurity, for critical infrastructure, things like that. And in fact, I was invited to organize a session on AAAS meeting next February in Chicago on these issues. So, we always have global risk, right? And thanks to Stefan and Francesca, sorry. I was introduced to the issue of community resilience to plague here in Venice, and that was clearly a global threat, global risk. You can see that it started in China, and within like literally 20 or 30 years, it spread around Asia, and Italians get it to Europe. And you can see it wipe out like, 2/3 of population in Europe. This is like decline of population in the frame of a couple of decades. The question is, what does it really mean? How can we learn from that experience? The good thing is that the Italians really bring it to Europe, but they dealt with that. So the question is, what information they have available about plague and how they make decisions. And I think in a sense it was a similar situation to what we have now. They have zero information about plague. This is what they think, this is like vampire who distributed the plague, and if you put a brick in the mouth of that person, then they cannot chew their way out of the grave, and epidemic will be stopped. They use metals to cure it. So it was no information, of course you need to pray. But nevertheless, that was the beginning of the public health. So this is Lazaret Island. I had a chance with Francesca and Stefano to go there. It was like novelty in the way medical professionals started to treat disease. So I will leave you thinking about this issue and what we can learn about that, and I will try to address it toward the end of my presentation. But that's an important issue. How information and decisions work together, and what should we do? Well, in general, how we deal with information and decision. I will parallel military science a couple of times in my presentation, partially because I work for US government, and by the way, whatever I present, it's not opinion on military, it's mine only, and moreover, I'm here on my personal time, so I hope this video will not be posted on the internet, otherwise I can get in trouble. But anyway, so this is how military deal with this issue. You need to observe what's going on, you need orient, decide, and act. What is wrong with this picture? Anybody? Well, it's significant time, you need to, each of these steps takes time, and again, this is like time steps in past wars, and war of tomorrow, which actually war of today. That's what we do now in Afghanistan, and actually it's cybersecurity now. So you cannot really wait to observe Korea and decide and act. You get a virus or intrusion in your computer, you have like milliseconds to act. You need to immediately act on information. So the current way to solve this problem, when we try to put information on network and make it more readily available to decision maker, is not going to work because we don't have time. We have terrorism, we have cybersecurity, all the threats are immediate and we need and require immediate response. So information and decision should be fused together. It should always be together, and the question is how you do that. Of course, we as a human being cannot think in millisecond time frame, so it should be automated. And again, what we do now, how we make decision now, you have decision maker faced with a lot of quantitative information, risk, intrusion probabilities, whatever, environmental contamination, and qualitative information, stakeholders' view, political views, intelligence in case of cybersecurity. So now actually the model is that you present this information to decision maker and he or she will look at it and decide. What is the problem with that? Well, individuals are not good in making decisions. When information is unstructured, when they are not in the familiar grounds. So groups are not any better. Groups are driven by a couple of local individuals, and often the voice of minority is lost, and decisions are kind of framed by a couple of loud voices. So what should we do? A couple of years ago, actually now it's like 6 or 7 years ago, I organized a conference when I collect scientists who study how decision is done by different organizations, biological organizations, from bacteria to fish, mammals, individual people and group of people. And what I found through listening to all these people is that actually human brains develop ability to integrate information, and this integration is very close to what we do in decision analysis. We basically integrate information based on utility for the specified goal, right? So if my goal is to go from this corner of the room to that, and there are no lights, and I have only like limited information, my brain is really assigned heavy weights to something that is closer to me or something that is brighter, and I use that information. And if I hit the table or something, I change, I adapt. So that's, in a sense, combination of decision analysis and adaptive management that I'm going to talk about. And of course, we as a human being develop this ability in situations we are familiar with, moving in the dark rooms or navigating Venice for that matter. But if you deal with unknown threats, you need to have tools. You need to have tools that help you to fuse this information. And in my team, we basically working on integration of risk assessment tools that is a good description of this physical domain, and mental modeling, it's cognitive modeling tools and decision analysis that are operating in cognitive domain. And by the way, this is important idea, again, taken from military doctrine, when they say that to win the war, you need to achieve superiority in physical domain. Of course, we have all this James Bond type of equipment, but it's not enough. You need to know how to deploy this equipment, where to deploy, when. That's information domain. We now have all computerized system. We know exactly what's happening. We can observe adversaries, but that's not enough. We need to make right decision. And this is like Rumsfeld who developed that. Well, of course not him personally, but people working for him about 20 years ago, I guess now. And they first introduced this cognitive domain with the idea that we need to have more a scientific and fundamental basis to make decisions. And they also talk about societal domain. That's basically not only you need to be able to make right decisions, you need to make a decision that they're right within specific cultural or societal context. So in Afghanistan now, I guess we're okay, or at least they said that we're okay in all of these domains, but we really need to win in cultural or societal domain. Okay, so that's what we're doing now. Anyway, so again, this is what we do in our team. And I'd like to just briefly mention projects that we have and give example of a couple of projects in more details. My goal up here is actually manifold. Of course, I like to inform you about what's going on in this field, but I also like to develop collaboration. And I specifically select projects that discuss new methodologies where I think we have an edge, and hopefully you will be interested and we'll be able to talk about that more offline or figure out a way to put together proposals and things like that. Any questions so far, by the way? I don't like to go non-stop. Okay, so the first type of project that we have in my team is judgment and data fusion. We apply it across multiple domains. The idea is that you have technical data and you have judgment, and you need to make decisions. You are going to hear about nanomaterials. In a sense, you know, that's data and judgment fusion, how to select right alternatives to produce nanomaterials that are sustainable. And Daniel and Antonio are just starting a big project on sustainable nanotechnology. This is clearly a problem that cannot be resolved without integration of a lot of information and guiding industry towards sustainable nanomanufacturing. We do a lot of flood risk management, so we have a cognitive models efforts to really figure out why we are not acting in one organization responding to flood. We support Department of Homeland Security on developing, this Department of Health and Human Services on developing risk communication portals. Army Corps has permitting authorities, so we develop permits, and actually that's very close to what we discussed with our Chinese colleague, Dr. Liu here, how to decide permitting decisions. The other type of project is strategy prioritization. We really have to figure out what to do in a specific area. So Army Corps manage, like, I don't know, we have 5 billion per year in civil works, and we manage dams and levees and flood protection, and everything like fell apart because it's all like in Venice. But you have so much money, and the question is how you prioritize. So what we develop here is actually value to the nation associated with each assets. And based on that, we develop portfolio tools that tells you, through Pareto frontier analysis, which combination of assets should be invested in given your budget. So that's portfolio analysis. We've done other projects, acquisition risk, how to buy appropriate technology given all the risk related to scheduling, integration and things like that. We work for Department of Homeland Security, how to decide what the best way to develop countermeasures for chemical and biological risk. Do you send more spies to Afghanistan? Do you put roadblocks around White House? Do you develop new vaccines? That's important decisions, but you need to integrate a lot of information to be able to decide on that. It was very interesting projects that we actually did before Arab Spring in Egypt. Department of State was curious what capability, skill set they need to maintain to address political crises all over the world. Should they have more lawyers, or should they have more policemen, or scientists for that matter? And we developed a decision model to help them to do that. And we look at different scenarios of political crises and things like that, and then we figure out which people are important for each crisis. And what is funny about that is that, of course, we didn't have Arab Spring in our model. Nobody was predicting that. But it was still a very successful project because it forced the Department of State to think strategically about what types of people they have and what types of people they need. And even, from the very beginning, they were telling, we are giving you this information, but we know that something will happen that we are not predicting now. And indeed, it happened a couple of months after we finished the project. So, and then we do a lot of stakeholder engagement work because we build and people around our infrastructure may not be happy with what we do. So we build and we need to ensure that stakeholders accepting what we do, and we develop joint decision model with stakeholders. In high-profile cases like Katrina restoration or this big case in Long Island Sound near New York. And I am going to talk a little bit more about adaptive management and portfolio management in military sites. And the last slide on kind of summary of our project, it's other projects related to sustainable infrastructure in international projects like in Afghanistan or flood prioritization, energy technologies. So we work, you can see we work across the board by implementing cutting-edge decision analytical tools. So, any questions? So, one project Everglades. If you don't familiar with map of the US, it's like basically one sort of Florida covered by this unique ecosystem. And what we've done within the last 100 years, we diverted water from where it belongs to where we need it, to agriculture and to do flood protection, all that. And as a result of that, some areas get a lot of water, other areas get very little water, and it's destroying the ecosystem there. And in combination of climate change, it's really detrimental to the whole national park. So adaptive management seemed to be a natural approach because it's huge, and we don't have money to do that. Just we have been spending on monitoring alone something around like 10 million per year. And actually the driver of this project was that monitoring funding was cut by 60% a couple of years ago. So now the question is what we monitor. And that's exactly where we come into the play. You monitor what is important for your decision, and then you adopt. Unfortunately, the traditional way of adaptive management is something like shown in this figure, when you so basically, you start with destroyed ecosystem. You figure out the plan to get it back. You start implementing it. It doesn't work. You get back on planning board, get all people engaged, develop another plan, and hopefully it will work this time. Well, what is wrong with that is that you need to call again your stakeholders. You need to basically replicate all the efforts. And the whole idea of adaptation, or what we call enhanced adaptive management, actually, we work on this project with Lynn Scarlett, who used to be Deputy Secretary of Interior agency that's responsible for many sites. She managed 70,000 people. And she coined the term enhanced adaptive management. Why it enhanced? It's enhanced because we tried to look at different future scenarios and system evolution and have an automated decision model that tells us whether we reach our target or getting towards our target or not, and we know what to do if we don't see what we expect to see. So decision models actually guide monitoring strategy and allow us to change course of action. So it goes, it's very simplified, but the good news is that it's published now in the paper in Nature Scientific Reports, new journal published by Nature. But you have decision model that basically integrate ecological receptors as well as monetary management, and it's all driven by climate change and management plans. So climate change integrated with scenario analysis, management impact on ecosystem integrated through environmental modeling, and basically, you can have like low water scenario, then you don't have enough water. You need to go to something more aggressive management strategy to get more water. Or if you have high water scenario, then you go to less aggressive strategies. So that's kind of the idea, that you develop scenario analysis and you integrate ecosystem modeling, and you have decision model that tells you what to do. Any questions about this? I'm going fast because I like to save time for resilience and for presentation by students. This is actually another big project that I had. It's partially a result of $2 million project that we had on integrated climate change modeling. And the problem here is you have coastal ecosystem, and you like to use it in this case for military activities with the training there, we build infrastructure. So we need like sandy beaches, but you know, these little birds also need these sandy beaches for their survival, so they become extinct not so much because of our activity, but rather because coastal Florida is like popular destination. People build condominiums and houses, and there are no undisturbed beaches which they need for their survival. So, but now the only reason they survive is because we have this area without people, but now we're responsible for them. So how can we ensure that they are as happy as they could be, but we still can fulfill our mission and use these habitats for military training? So similarly, we develop a decision model that integrates data from climate change model, hydrological models that tells you climate changing this way, how habitat is going to change. And then we have ecological model that tells you if habitat is going to change, this is how birds are going to be impacted. And we calculate the extinction risk. But then we can modify these management alternatives. Basically, these processes, we can do beach nourishment, we can add more sand on the beach, we can control predators, and we can do many other things. So the question is, and if you have multiple species, and you have multiple alternatives, and you have 20 kilometers, of course the question is, when you do what is very important. And this is a project where we use portfolio analysis tools when we say, well, you have a package of alternatives, you have multiple species, and moreover you have evolution in time. And the question is what you do in 2013 and what you do in 2050, what you do in 2100s. We have a plan of action that needs to be done given different scenarios and given impact of our actions on survival of all these endangered species, as well as on our needs as users of this area. Any questions about this? So this is the latest and probably most interesting area of our research, and it's becoming to be a buzzword. So if you look at Horizon 2020 solicitation, and we do that with Antonio, it's the whole topics related to resilience. And even though like a few years ago nobody was talking about that, so it's really booming. And we started work on resilience some 3 years ago. We published a couple of papers contrasting risk and resilience, because there is a lot of confusion about that. But what we start doing, we start to develop more like approach to quantify resilience. And what is important to notice is that risk, as I showed in the first slide, is basically a bottom-up approach. You predict that something bad is going to happen. Your ultimate goal is to calculate probability that what is going to happen is going to hit you, and you're going to suffer one way or another. So it may be cancer risk if there are pesticides in this bottle of water. It may be risk of bridge collapse when they walk on Venice. So what we do in this situation, we control pesticide, we enforce bridges, but we, in risk approach, we're trying to identify a weak point in this chain and ensure that it's taken care of. And the reason we can do that, because we know what's going to happen. But imagine that we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen with cyber threats. Nobody knows. I don't know what's going to happen with climate change. And moreover, even if I know that it's going to change, how it's going to affect me, where I'm going to be hit, I really don't know. So, and this is like resilience. Resilience is really a system concept. I like to be able to design my flood protection infrastructure, my cybersecurity system in a way that no matter what is going to hit me, I'm going to recover and continue operation. And it's very different concept, actually. And we don't have theory how to deal with that, or even practical tools. So for example, we as a human beings, we don't know how we are going, which virus is going to hit us. But if we get the virus, usually if it's not the plague or something like that, we are going to be sick for a couple of days and we are going to recover. And more resilient you are, faster you recover, right? But the virus hit this computer and it's not in my antivirus database, it's going to make significant damage. So the question is how to make it resilient. So National Academy published this book on resilience, disaster resilience. So they're saying is that in any complex system you need to prepare for adverse event. Once adverse events happen, you need to absorb, recover from, and adapt to. And this is visualization of that. I don't think it's from National Academy, but they found it useful. So you have some system functionality, everything is fine, but you need to plan and prepare. Now something bad happened, you start to lose functionality, so this is absorb phase. And then you recover, and you can get to a new level, maybe even better or worse. But once you get to the stable level, you need to adapt. And basically resilience is this area under this curve, mathematical or conceptual. So how you measure it? Well, before you have a good theory, you can try to measure it through a system of metrics. And multiple people try to do that, but most of the metrics available here on plan and prepare and absorb phase, not much in recover and adapt. And we were thinking about that, and remember all these domains in the military doctrine, and we thought that, what is the difference between war, fighting, and any other complex system? You don't have much difference. If you like to operate flood protection infrastructure, Stefan here, water infrastructure, you need to worry about physical domain, your infrastructure. You need to be sure that you collect right information. You need to be certain that you make a good decision with that information. And of course, you need to satisfy societal demand. So from that perspective, any system needs to address all these three domains. So what you do when you integrate these steps of resilience defined by National Academies with 4 domains, you get what we call resilience metrics, where you have 4x4 table and you measure ability of the system to plan, prepare in physical domain and absorb in other domains, and you get something like this. In each cell you have some metrics that correspond to resilience of your system, and you can integrate them through decision analysis because each cell may be of different importance for your system. If you talk about water infrastructure, physical and societal may be important, but if you talk about cybersecurity, information is more important. But anyway, this is just example. What is the example of matrix for plan, prepare, and physical domain? Well, it can be network statistics, sensing equipment, ability of personnel to really change physical network, information domain, absorb, You need to have damage sensing equipment, cascading losses, forecasting modeling, and so forth. So we published this paper in Environmental Science and Technology. Is available now. Another paper is probably very close to being published on cybersecurity resilience. But let's go back. I promise you to go back to Venice. And I was introduced to this beautiful new Lazaretto Island by Francesca and Stefano. So this is how Venetian deal with crisis. They actually they did risk and decision analysis, right? So they saw this massive wave of death coming, and they tried to change the way physicians address. They tried to create island, Lazaretto Island, where people were sent to die. But they also create very interesting Lazaretto Nuovo island for trade, where quarantine came from. So people there were in the suspect category, so they were there for 40 days, and they survived. They were sent to live, but some people, of course, died. So what it really means, what they've actually done. So they didn't know about threats. They didn't know about cause of disease that much, they have all kinds of misbeliefs. But what they've done, they changed network properties of the system. And they change it actually at different level. They change it at local level, on building levels, when they have like isolation of sick people with physicians in protective clothes, with those masks. They put so Lazaretto Nuovo was, and Lazaretto, it's spatial. They change physical configuration of the system. They change physical network, because you have one way trading was done, and they change it with 2 islands. But with quarantine, they also change temporal property of the system. They add this temporal path. And actually that was very beneficial for the whole region, because it get replicated across different countries in the region. And that was actually the beginning of public health, and Stefano, of course, can tell more about that. What is amazing is that this changing of network structure really worked, and with different success in different places. So it would be really cool to really use this example to build like theory of resilience and see how those people 600 years ago, 500 years ago were able to do that, how they were making decisions, because in each step they had like decisions, they had to have decision makers who really making these decisions. So that's what puzzles me now, and if you'd like to work on that, I would be glad to join. And I know several people here are thinking about reviving this line of research in Lazaretto Island. So Francesca, Stefano, and Silvia are here who can help you with this. So my conclusion, and then we have our great students to present. So just to remind, bottom-up approach is good. We've done it, but it should be supplemented with top-down approach to address emerging challenges. It will give you clear benefits, and we need tools to do that. We published a lot, so if you give me your business cards or contact me one way or another, we'll send you all these papers. We publish journals like system journals where we specifically try to address system top-down approaches across different areas. So if you have papers to submit, please do. And of course it requires creative way of teaching. This one way of teaching that we have been practicing, where you just tell students methods and tools with the hope that they will remember after they graduate and use it. It's not going to work. You really need to teach students to be able to work across multiple domains of information and adapt to new challenges. And that's what we try to do with this group of very bright students, and 2 of them volunteers to present. This is their probably first public presentation such a steam crowd, so I hope everything will be fine, but don't ask tough questions, I will answer them anyway.
Buongiorno, siamo le rappresentanti del primo anno di corso di laurea magistrale in scienze ambientali. Abbiamo svolto questo progetto durante il corso di gestione e valutazione della sostenibilità ambientale. Come prima domanda ci siamo poste come definire la sostenibilità ambientale, cosa significa? La definizione globale è quella data nel 1987 nel rapporto Brundtland, cioè che le risorse dovevano venire usate in modo tale da non precludere poi l'utilizzo e lo sfruttamento da parte delle generazioni future. Con ciò che esiste poi una definizione che è relativa a quella globale, che è quella della triple bottom line, cioè dei tre principi centrali della sostenibilità, quello sociale che comprende quello umano, quello economico e quello ambientale. Per il nostro lavoro abbiamo preferito usare subito quello della triple bottom line. Il nostro lavoro si è specificato sulle nanotecnologie. Questo si basa su particelle che o singole o agglomerate troviamo su una scala dimensionale dei nanometri. Quindi, essendo questa ancora una ricerca nuova, non sappiamo definire perfettamente i rischi ed i benefici. Benefici che possono essere vari, che possono andare dalla medicina all'ambiente. Come potete vedere in questa immagine c'è questo strumento chiamato NanoStraw, che è essenzialmente una cannuccia che con le tecnologie permette di filtrare l'acqua e depurarla allo stesso tempo. I rischi però non sono stati ancora perfettamente approvati, quindi mancano ancora molti dati tossicologici che perciò potrebbero portare danni all'ambiente oppure anche alla salute dell'uomo. Perciò dobbiamo chiederci, le nanotecnologie sono sostenibili? Come possiamo misurare la sostenibilità delle nanotecnologie e come possiamo provarla? Questo è stato anche il fine del nostro progetto, con il quale abbiamo poi creato un caso studio dove potevamo selezionare diverse nanotecnologie sostenibili a seconda dei portatori di interesse. Durante la nostra ricerca bibliografica, in tutti i documenti pubblicabili, siamo riusciti a definire cos'era la nanotecnologia sostenibile. Questo in modo globale. Il documento del 2008 dell'Unione Europea, il Code of Conduct, dice esattamente che la ricerca sulla nanotecnologia deve essere sicura, etica e apportare anche sviluppi alla sostenibilità verso il miglioramento dei Millennium Development Goals definiti dalle Nazioni Unite. Inoltre questa non deve portare danni o rischi né biologici, fisici o morali a persone, animali, piante o all'ambiente circostante, con ciò che allo stesso tempo deve essere presente e anche futuro. Per il nostro lavoro però non siamo riusciti ad usarla perfettamente, quindi abbiamo ricercato la nostra definizione di nanotecnologia sostenibile in un lavoro di un istituto di ingegneria chimica che si era specificato esattamente sulla sostenibilità. Quindi abbiamo usato la loro definizione dei pilastri della sostenibilità, quella della triple bottom line. Per svolgere il nostro lavoro di bibliografia ci siamo divisi in 6 gruppi, perciò per migliorare il tempo e anche l'organizzazione e la ricerca poi di criteri che avremo implementato nel caso studio. Questi 6 gruppi sono stati divisi a seconda della tematica per la ricerca di materiale sulla nanosostenibilità. Un gruppo si è specificato nella ricerca di citazioni all'interno di articoli scientifici, altri due invece sulla ricerca all'interno di documenti dell'Unione Europea e documenti americani, quindi degli Stati Uniti d'America. Un quarto gruppo invece è nato nello specifico sulla letteratura grigia, mentre gli ultimi due si sono soffermati all'interno di aspetti socio-economici, come quelli dell'opinione pubblica, quindi del consumatore, ed inoltre sulle industrie manifatturiere, le loro pubblicazioni. Ogni gruppo ha ricercato la metodologia seguendo vari database. Questi, come posso portarvi l'esempio del gruppo delle ricerche scientifiche, quindi sugli articoli scientifici, ha cercato le proprie fonti all'interno di Google Scholar, Google Research e Science Direct, applicando le parole chiave tipiche come nanostar, sustain star, life cycle assessment, future technology assessment, nano production, nano manufacturing. Questa è la tabella che abbiamo creato alla fine della ricerca bibliografica. Quindi essa riassume tutte le pubblicazioni, ponendo poi allora la loro specifica tematica, quindi il loro aspetto sia regolamentatorio, oppure ambientale, oppure manifatturiero, definendo poi anche i criteri che siamo riusciti a sottolineare all'interno di questi specifici documenti, che si basano esattamente sulla triple bottom line, cioè ambientale, sociale ed economico, condividendo poi altri sottocriteri, come ad esempio potete vedere quello del rischio ambientale, della generazione di rifiuti o del rischio umano. Inoltre, alla fine abbiamo specificato il metodo di analisi utilizzato. Quindi, se quel documento rappresentava un life cycle assessment, un future technology assessment, oppure era solamente discorsivo, come ad esempio avviene per le leggi. Come potete vedere, questo è ancora un lavoro che stiamo ancora facendo negli ultimi giorni, bisogna concluderlo. Questo è un esempio della classificazione finale della nostra bibliografia, quindi questo in particolare è del settore dell'industria, che mostra come la maggior parte delle pubblicazioni riguardano l'implementazione di nuovi materiali oppure anche lo sviluppo di nuove tecnologie o anche la cura della persona, mentre meno pubblicazioni vengono specificate specialmente sulla tossicologia e anche sull'approccio ambientale. Ora passo la parola alla collega Jenny che vi spiegherà di più sul caso studio.
Buongiorno. Allora, il nostro modello decisionale è stato creato grazie all'utilizzo della multi-criterial decision analysis e come scopo ci siamo posti quello di ricercare il termine sostenibilità nella nanotecnologia. Innanzitutto sono stati divisi diversi stakeholders in consumatori, legislatori e produttori e si è fatto riferimento a quali possono essere le nanotecnologie riscontrabili, le alte nanotecnologie, le tecnologie di base e le basse nanotecnologie. A differenza delle basse nanotecnologie abbiamo posto in modello previsionale che le alte nanotecnologie abbiano costi di produzione elevati e allo stesso tempo impatti ambientali e sociali alti. Grazie all'utilizzo del software The Servants abbiamo creato questo modello concettuale, questo diagramma d'albero, inserendo i pilastri, quelli che sono stati i pilastri della definizione di sostenibilità nella comportamentale, ovvero ambientali, economici e sociali. Nel particolare abbiamo utilizzato il testo di riferimento della società di ingegneria chimica al fine di definire criteri e subcriteri. I subcriteri nell'ambito ambientale possono essere la creazione dei rifiuti, la preoccupazione verso la salute umana e la salute dell'ambiente o lo sfruttamento delle risorse, mentre per l'ambito economico costi e profitti, investimenti, l'efficienza dei materiali stessi, il rischio tecnologico, mentre per gli aspetti sociali gli stakeholder interessati, la società in senso lato e la definizione del posto di lavoro, in quanto può essere questo contesto che si può venire a contatto con le nanoparticelle oppure i nanomateriali in generale. Con la nostra ricerca bibliografica abbiamo inoltre posto l'attenzione sul nanomateriale in sé, quindi nelle prossime settimane andremo a implementare questo modello con particolari riferimenti alle nanotecnologie. L'utilizzo del programma inoltre obbliga a dare dei pesi ai criteri e subcriteri in modo tale da riordinare le alternative proposte. Nel nostro caso le alternative sono quelle di nanotecnologia alta, di base oppure bassa, e vengono riordinate in base anche agli stakeholders che si dividono appunto perché gli interessi si dividono in base a riferimento alle industrie, ai consumatori o ai policy makers. Questi sono i risultati preliminari. Si vede che gli score sono relativamente vicini per le tecnologie di base, le tecnologie alte, le tecnologie basse. Quindi al fine di migliorare la nostra ricerca abbiamo adottato un'analisi di sensitività dei criteri in modo tale da regolare ciascun criterio in base al peso ambientale, sociale e economico. Per i legislatori abbiamo dato più peso all'aspetto sociale, mentre per i consumatori all'aspetto ambientale e per le produzioni industriali all'aspetto economico. Si vede che comunque i valori sono praticamente simili per tutti e tre gli stakeholders, anche se praticamente i legislatori hanno una leggera preferenza verso le basse nanotecnologie. In conclusione, il fatto di utilizzare DA permette di inserire dati quantitativi e qualitativi allo stesso tempo, di creare schemi con pesi flessibili che possono catturare le differenti preference e permettono anche di dare degli output che sono facilmente comprensibili agli stakeholders. Inoltre la sostenibilità può essere valutata utilizzando i software della Multi-Criteria Decision Analysis e però i pesi e le valutazioni devono essere dati e calibrati in base allo stakeholder, alle tecnologie di riferimento e al contesto di applicazione. Ed è per questo motivo che nel caso i dati non fossero così nettamente contrastanti si può procedere con l'analisi di sensibilità. Grazie.
This class, you have to understand that nobody knows what sustainable nanotechnology is. They really did, cutting-edge research, if you like, and done really well. And Rich Shelley here somewhere, was supervising them with me and Elaine and Professor Martinini. So thank you, great presentation.